When I woke up today and I was scrolling through social media, I saw a post that I thought was very interesting. The Mets seem to be a team that you would expect to make playoffs coming into this season after viewing what they did in the offseason, but a lot of people were starting to debate if the Mets will even make the playoffs. And today I kind of wanted to make the argument that the Mets can still make the playoffs, and also why are they kind of in this area, this gray area where people are just assuming they're not going to make playoffs. For the people that don't watch baseball every day or might not know what's going on with the Mets because you follow another team, the Mets are kind of having a meltdown as of sorts in this first half of the season. Now, a lot of it has been attributed to things like injuries, underperformance, and of course the pitching, which we actually saw happen yesterday, where the Mets kind of just threw a game away after Showalter decided not to call out one of their pitchers late into the game. In the 8th inning of the Phillies-Mets game, the Phillies literally came back by 3 runs, and they only had 1 hit the entire inning. A lot of it was just walks and people just getting hit by a ball. But today, it's a bigger topic on the pitching aspect. Right now, a big type of topic I want to talk about is 2 of the big aces on that squad, Justin Verlander and of course Max Scherzer, have had issues in the beginning of the season, and honestly they haven't really been the same. Of course there's been some brief stints where Justin Verlander looks really good or Max Scherzer just looks insane, but they've had a lot of issues this season and it hasn't really helped the Mets in the first half of the season. Now I think in the long stretch of the 161 games the Mets are going to end up playing, I think Verlander and Max Scherzer will have amazing starts after the All-Star game. I think a lot of these veteran pitchers go into a game trying to pitch the best they can. I mean, obviously, they've been in the league for so long and they have literally legacy to their name. I think they'll start to pick it up in the later end of the season when the Mets really want to go push for a playoff series. But yet again, baseball is a 161 game sport. If you're not playing all 161 games, you can't get mad when your team misses the playoffs by 1 or 2 games. I think the Mets are still really in the playoff run, and I think the bad pitching can be attributed to, of course, their star pitchers being out, and of course the young pitchers just not pitching to the expectations that people have set for them. I think a name that a lot of Mets fans expected to do really well was David Peterson. He was a young rookie on the squad. I mean, he's been with the team for a bit now, but he recently just got recalled from AAA as of 16 hours ago. I'm recording this on June 26th. David Peterson was a guy that a lot of people expected going into season to have his breakout season. He's been brewing it up, he's been cooking it up, he's been doing really well, but this season in 7 games he has a 8.08 ERA and he's pitched a total of 39 innings. Now, of course, he hasn't really had a starting spot. He's done some starts here and there, but his pitching ERA really doesn't reflect the type of pitcher he was in previous season. I think something like this makes the Mets meltdown literally stack up bit by bit. Now, David Peterson is one thing. I expect him to do really well. Like I said, he's 27 years old. He's still really young. This guy has a lot of potential, and I see him going to be doing really well in the future. Now, I guess a positive side of this Mets pitching rotation I will say is Kodai Senga. He has lived up to expectations, and a lot of people really thought that maybe this guy was gonna be a bust because of how much the Mets were paying him and what type of deal they gave him, but Kodai Senga looks like the truth, man. He's like one of the best pitchers on that rotation right now, in my opinion, probably the best, and I guarantee he'll be an all-star this year. I would expect if the Mets made the playoffs this year, he would be probably your second game guy or maybe your first game guy depending on injuries. Now, like I said, Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer of course are gonna fight for that 1 and 2 spot. I mean, that's just a given. The Mets are paying him so much to have that position, but I think Kodai Senga is starting to make the argument that maybe he should be one of those second or first guys. It really depends. Kodai Senga is the future of the Mets, and I think if you're a Mets fan, this is a positive of the meltdown that is the Mets in the first half of the season. Now let's talk about the batting, because pitching isn't everything. There's also the batting. The Mets offense has been kind of abysmal to a sense as of late. That's why a lot of these prospects the Mets are actually calling up are expected to do really well, because God, Mets fans are starving right now for anyone to do well. And that's why I'm really happy, and I'm going to give a positive here, is that Francisco Alvarez has been doing really well, man. The bat has been working for him, and I kind of been following him ever since he got called up to the big leagues. A lot of people thought his defense would be kind of obscure and just not as good, but he's really started to work on that, and his bat is really starting to get there. The dude has a ton of homers in the first like 2 months he's been up in the league. I think this kid is the future for the Mets, and I think he's going to do really well. Now, of course, there's other rookies on the team like baty, which has been doing really good in my opinion. A lot of people are kind of mad at him because he made a really bad mistake yesterday that kind of costed them the game to a sense. It's like the butterfly effect. He kind of just chokes up on the ball and he kind of just messes it up. He messes up the play and then it leads to the pitchers hitting the batters and then the game's over. The Phillies win. Things like that happen. It's a rookie mistake. This is what I mean when rookies are gonna rookie no matter what. Baty is a prime example. The thing that happened yesterday on June 25th was a prime example. I think baty, if you continue to let him play, and yes, I know it's kind of a weird argument that should we let the rookies play because we're trying to win a playoffs and we're trying to win a World Series now? Like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Yet again, I'm not a general manager. I can't make that decision, but I can only say that having baty play every day and play when he can play, I think it's very smart. I think baty and of course someone like Mark Vientos will do really well when the Mets actually played him. I think it's a big argument right now. The Mets really aren't playing the rookies, and sometimes yes they are, and sometimes they do mess up like last night, but when they do play, a lot of times they do really well, and I like that. And I'm a big fan of Francisco Alvarez, and I'm waiting for Ronnie Mauricio to get that call up because man, this kid is the truth. If you guys don't know who I'm talking about, I'll link the video up here to see. He was an MVP of sorts in the Dominican League if I'm not mistaken, and of course Ronnie Mauricio is a dude that I expect to be really good for the Mets when he eventually ends up getting called up. Besides the rookies, besides the pitching, what else can we look at that the reason that the Mets aren't doing really well? And I think we could point that out to people that aren't really hitting as people would expected them to do so this season. Right now, you only have 3 people hitting above average. You have Starling Marte hitting at a 258, Jeff McNeil hitting at a 260, and Brandon Nimmo hitting at a 283. Everyone else below in their lineup is hitting under a 226 average. Now, for a lot of teams with a lot of all-stars and a lot of talent, the people that you're expecting to do really well and at least hit for average and be star players just aren't doing that. And Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor are 2 of the people that I look at when I see this Mets offense needs these guys to do really well. Now, yet again, they've only probably played around 77 games. Of course, Pete Alonso has played less just because he was injured for a little bit, but the first half of the season, so I'm going to give them a break, but the Mets really need these guys to start picking it back up if they want their offense to get back to where it usually is. Now, of course, like I said, there's a lot of positive for the Mets. I'm not trying to make the argument the Mets aren't going to make the playoffs, just that what is really going on with the Mets right now. I think there's glaring issues, like I've said earlier in the video, but I think the Mets can still make the playoffs. This is a very well-rounded team. When these people actually wake up and perform like they're supposed to, they do extremely well. Pete Alonso at one point was in talks for will he win an MVP in the next 5 years, and Francisco Lindor was one of the youngest, brightest stars in all of baseball. Now, of course, they're still really good talent. They're just kind of in a slump, and I feel like Daniel Vogelbach said it really good 4 days ago when he was talking to SNY. Vogelbach actually said, following the Mets series loss to the Astros in Houston, he said, "We're going to go on a winning streak." I don't know when that is, and I wish I could tell you, but I truly believe it's going to happen. I really think the Mets are going to take back their position in the probably first or second place in the NL East, just because the Mets are a competitive team, and when they're on a roll, this team could keep going for ages. This team has endless talent, and with a young star rookie class, I think is going to do really well as long as things just start to flow a lot better and maybe the managing gets a bit better. I think this team has a ton of potential, and I really am looking forward to see this team after the All-Star break, what type of things they're going to do at the trade deadline, etc. And yes, I know it's June 26th. The All-Star, actual break isn't for another few weeks, but I think this team has a ton of potential, and I'm really looking forward to how the Mets are going to do. Like I said, this is not a video of me trying to bash on the Mets. This is just me saying that the Mets do have issues, and I really think they can fix it in the near future. Now, of course, today, Justin Verlander is going to be pitching as this video is recording or out. They are in a series with the Brewers right now, and I'm really curious to see how this series ends up going about. Just because if they do really well and the series is a possible win for them, that is going to be amazing, because the Mets have only won 1 series in all of June, if I'm not mistaken. Mets fans, they need this, and I think it's very important the Mets do really well just because they need to, or they're going to be out of the playoffs, and they might be missing the playoffs by 1 or 2 games if they don't play all 161 games like it's their last. I think the Mets have a ton of potential, like I've said, and you don't want to repeat of what happened last season with the Braves in the playoff situation. Thanks for watching. Let me know, Mets fans, if you think anything about this video. Am I saying really wrong things? Are you guys looking forward to your team doing good again or things like like that. I know, for example, a good example is Starling Marte starting to do their thing again. I don't know. I just want to hear your guys' opinions. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you guys think the Mets will make the playoffs? Do you think this meltdown is just because it's the first half of the season? Like I said, this happens to a lot of teams in baseball. It's the first half. There's no need to kind of go over exaggerating and say the Mets won't make the playoffs. But then again, it could happen. Thank you guys for watching. My name's Joe. Have a great day or night when you're watching this. Stay safe. Bye.